could write the time skip in any way, how would you like structure and how would you write it?
How would I structure it? Well, I would structure it with the with screenplay structure. Here, I'll put something in chat that you can put on screen because I think it's really interesting.
Thanks.
So, breaking down what I was saying earlier, you have a lot of different structures. You have something called a circle structure. You have the 3-act structure, 4-act structure, 5-act structure. Hey, you might as well have the 38-act structure. Basically, what's up?
Can you talk to us like we're not script writers? I have no idea what the heck you're talking about, bro.
Yeah, so I'm getting down to that. So basically, what I was saying earlier. Right, the previous arc was following a 3-act structure, which I put that in chat, which hopefully you can get that on screen.
Yeah, I got you. No worries.
And what this is breaking down into is it's broken down into 24 different plot points, and plot points are separate from plot. So plot is like the totality of all the events that happen. That's pretty obvious. Everyone knows what plot is. But plot points are the sort of specific things that happen. So for example, Boruto being, I'll use this word again, impaled, that's one specific plot point that you could point to on this 3-act structure, and that would be the midpoint, which is in between plot point 12 and 13.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you just follow the structure, what you have to do is rather than writing the Boruto story in a certain structure, you have to have the structure to write the Boruto story in. So it's kind of backwards from what you're saying, because the structure doesn't give you the story. It just, you're supposed to have the story, and the structure tells you how you're supposed to tell that story. If that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
No, I just got.
I see what you mean.
But all right, go ahead, Bar. You see what you mean? Go ahead.
No, I see what you mean. One of the only things that I'm worried about in this particular structure and having the structure lead the story, it's like how much longer would the story be? And I know you said about like 8 more chapters, but if this is true, like the midpoint, I don't necessarily think that they can get the full climax out within that short time frame. You see what I'm saying?
I mean, it is a monthly chapter rather than a weekly chapter, so I mean, the pacing is really subjective in the first place. How long was the Code Arc? Probably like 12 chapters. I don't know. That's just a guess. Do you really want something as long as the Code Arc, though? Again, because it was kind of slow, if I'm being honest.
No, I see what you mean. It might be a bit slow. The only thing, I'm not gonna lie, if Kodachi is writing this, I could definitely see this. I could definitely see a second part as being only 8 chapters. But if it's truly the midpoint, in my personal opinion, I think it would probably have to be like another 12 chapters. If it's generally the midpoint. Now, I'm not completely sure about how the act things work. You got significantly more knowledge than me. But in your opinion, like how much longer do you think it would actually be if this is generally the midpoint, or can it actually be only 8 more chapters?
So basically, what I was saying earlier is that the midpoint of this arc was Boruto's quote unquote impaling. So that moment was the halfway point of this arc. This is more of a transition arc to get into a different arc. So we actually just ended this arc. So Damon curb stomping Code again. That was the end of this arc, and now we're moving into a different arc. It's something similar to, if you remember, we had the tuning exams, which was kind of like the midpoint was the Konoha Crush began. I consider that all one arc. But then before you have the Sasuke retrieval, you have Sasuke's sort of inciting incident, which was a transition arc. That was Itachi coming. That was a very short arc. And obviously it follows this sort of 3-act structure as well, with midpoints and all that, which I'd argue is the most important structure. But the general gist is that, similar to how Sasuke, that whole entire transition arc had a purpose, rather than it being an important arc in and of itself, it was important to Sasuke's character. I think this inciting incident arc was very important for Code's character moving forward. So, similar to how we had the Itachi arc, followed by the Sasuke retrieval arc, I think that we're having this Boruto transition arc with Code, to where we're going to get like a Code destroying arc in the future, for like an end of part 1 sort of Boruto leading into the time skip kind of arc as a finale of all of Boruto part 1.
So how do you feel about this? Or do you think that they should like have a storyline just for Code? Because Code is like on his own journey right now, so it can be like the villain's conquest, or however they put it, or whatever.
Yeah, the opposite of the hero's journey.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah,
there you go.
No, definitely they should really focus on Code at this point, because what we've seen is Naruto is a world of winners and losers. Code has been the loser for quite some time. Just like Sasuke in the first 60 episodes of Naruto, he was a loser to Naruto. And then after Itachi came, that was his inciting incident. He eventually decided that was enough. He had to get stronger, and that's when he started winning to the point that he even defeated Naruto himself at the end of part 1.
Okay.
So either we're going to get Code is basically the Sasuke of Shippuden, or Code has to be defeated by the end of part 1, because we're not going to get Code defeated at the beginning or middle of the time skip. Either he's going to be the villain, or he's going to be a villain no longer.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Well, one question I definitely did have for you: if Code were to actually be defeated, who would he be defeated by? You think?
Definitely by Kawaki. So here's the thing with Code's character. Shout out to Juju. I'm going to make a Code video with Juju's pretty soon. But Code's character, besides the plot of him losing a lot, he's actually pretty good from a story perspective of his character, the way he's written. So again, besides the losing part, the way he's structured is brilliant, because rather than being the antagonist to Boruto, we're seeing Kawaki in the role of the protagonist, whereas Code has to be the antagonist not to Boruto but to Kawaki, which is really interesting because in the future Kawaki is going to be the antagonist to Boruto, which means in a way Code and Boruto are kind of on the same team. So the thing with antagonists is they're the ones that drive the story. And so leading up to this point, we've seen Kawaki's been the proactive one, for example, leaving the village in the transition arc, whereas Code's been the reactive one, going to Kawaki, and then reacting to all the situations, and ultimately losing, whereas Kawaki wins. And so we have to wonder, why are they the protagonists and antagonists? In this instance, the reason that Kawaki has won, whereas Code has lost, is because Kawaki's love for Naruto is true, whereas Code's love for Ishiki is false. If he wanted to take Kawaki, if he wanted to, quote-unquote, love Ishiki, well, I should probably rephrase it, but you get the general idea. Yeah. He would have, but because his words spoke louder than his actions, he lost. And that's why we saw the plot physical losing of Code, because the plot doesn't matter, it's the story that matters. The important part is that Kawaki won the narrative battle, which means that Code lost the narrative battle, which means he lost the physical battle, because this is a shonen. That's sort of how we're telling the story. Going forward, no, it's fine. So going forward, but basically what this means is because he's the antagonist, he no longer gets to react to things. Code, we have to follow Code's perspective of him being proactive. We need to see him starting the conflict. So he needs to go to Konoha. He needs to be the one to get stronger on his own. We can't see him being the follower anymore. Rather, he's going to be that guy moving forward. But go ahead.
Who do you think, I'm sorry, I got distracted real quick. But my question to you guys is, do you guys think that Code, like his first person he'll get his revenge on, if he does, like, get the power that he seeks, would be Damon? Do you think that would be his first, like, target? Or do you think he's still going to target Kawaki as a...
He could try.
He could try.
He could try. I think it would have to be
wouldn't
Kawaki.
that show... I'm sorry to cut you off, but wouldn't that show, like, Code's power up as far as like him getting stomped out by that kid and then him ultimately defeating him at the end? Wouldn't that show his superiority and like his training or whatever he did to retrieve the power that he's seeking? Wouldn't that be the best way to do it?
Yeah, 1000%. The only thing that'll get real dangerous for me is if he generally does surpass Damon. I don't necessarily see how Boruto and Kawaki, unless they also get a significant power boost, and I'm pretty sure they're going to be training as well. I'm not sure how that fight right there would genuinely work. And if Code actually does generally beat Damon in a 1v1, I just don't really see how Kawaki gets to that level, unless it's like some fraudulent stuff, you feel me? Code is distracted, Kawaki pulls up with time space ninjutsu and bodies him out of nowhere, then I could potentially see something like that. But the storyline has been setting up for Code to, you feel me, essentially abuse Kawaki for a minute. He got to get his get back on Kawaki. He got to do something against Kawaki. So that, in my personal opinion, that right there might...
on Damon. He embarrassed him. Sorry, Bar. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, 1000%. And I personally believe that if it is generally a situation where Kawaki is going to be the actual guy to defeat Code, of course, Code would definitely need a get back, but I think Damon would probably be too high of a character to actually have him get his get back against. Now, again, it's possible for Kawaki to be the get back guy than Boruto. at the end of the day, actually does finish Cold off. But as Ood said, I just personally believe that Kawaki would make the most sense as being the person to actually finish off Cold. Now, it could be a flip flop where, hey, Boruto gets folded by Cold and barely escapes and nearly escapes Cold's wrath. Then Kawaki comes by and finishes him off, mainly because Ishika's karma is strong and Kawaki at this particular point is strong on the board. So I think that could be a good storyline. But as of right now, him just pulling up and destroying Damon, I think that'll kind of throw off the power scaling.
We haven't heard from Mello in a while. What you think about that, Mello?
Bro, you still alive over there, bro? You good?
Yo, Monk, I'll be getting jumped every 2 seconds by his children. What happened over there, bro? We try to make sure you good, bro, before we continue. You feel me?
Bookshelf
no, I'm good, bro. No, I muted the server so nobody can hear that. My son is getting this this monitor. That's what you're hearing.
Oh, okay. All right,
I got you. I thought you was getting attacked by the MP.
No. I just said mute it for us. I just muted it on the server. My bad.
Well, we just have to make sure we can't have our podcast meet going out like that. You feel me?
I promise you, if I was getting murdered, you guys would know.
And next thing you know, this becomes a clip of podcast host gets packed up while doing a pod. Like, damn.
I love how they use packed up in the official heading. I love
it. Somebody else gonna get packed up.
What? What was the question again? I completely
forgot, bro. I'm throwing.
Well, no, we're talking about Cole essentially having like a comeback fight. We're essentially talking about Cole having a comeback fight, and you guys are asking, should the comeback fight be against Damon? And I said, him just beating Damon off of the rip on his first comeback might kind of throw the power scaling off whack, man, because if we do anticipate Kawaki being the guy to finish off Cold 1v1, it probably wouldn't necessarily make the most sense unless Kawaki would catch Cold off guard.
I think maybe if they did something like have Kawaki or Boruto fight off against Damon, and then Damon folds them, and then Damon is solidified as like the number one from like everyone's perspective, and then later Damon gets folded by Cold, right? So this way you can kind of circumvent, Kawaki and Boruto taking an L, while also showing that Kawaki and Boruto cannot defeat Cold because he defeated someone that they lost to, which would be Damon. So yeah, maybe by some mechanic or some means, Cold figures out how to become more powerful. He goes up against Damon, then he folds Damon after Damon folds Kawaki and Boruto, and then now our two heroes have to face off against Kawaki in that instance. They're the underdogs without ever having to lose, so that you don't take away their shine, and then you can kind of humble Damon a little bit, because I think that character needs that. Not only in terms of like his personality or his like demeanor, but just simply he's a little too powerful. He's a little too busted right now. But no, when I look at like Cold, he's teleporting with Bug and whatnot, and Damon couldn't get from point A to point B. He couldn't get to Cold before Cold left. So that's kind of a speed feat for Cold, if you want to call it that. And there's a lot of things I suspect that Cold has in terms of abilities that he didn't use, like he just manifests claw marks seemingly out of nowhere, without any explanation of where they came from. So yeah, no, I think Cold is going to be fine in terms of his characterization moving forwards, but I think that'll be a good way to do it. Have him fold Damon.
The fact that a speed feat though, you ever ran away from a dog before and been terrified out of your mind and outran that dog and jumped fences that you never thought that you could jump before in your life? I think that was just the fact with Cole. He was so scared out of his mind that he got away real quick.
Maybe. I mean, or you could, yeah, you can use that. I like that. Back in the days when like dogs were like roaming the streets and just controlling whole neighborhoods. Yeah, I remember that. No, but yeah, like when he's trying to escape, this is him limited. Yeah. Okay, I got it. Yeah. No, he this is him. You messed me up with that. This is him limited. Code, but he tries to escape Kawaki, and then Kawaki like shrinks the claw marks rather. He can't escape, something like that. Now again, this is limited Code, but It's interesting. Like little stuff like that when you see like a character so heavily dominated in combat, especially when it's just physical combat, like no like abilities or anything
Right.
from his opponent. You kind of you know you're picking hairs, you're crossing your eyes and dotting crossing your eyes, dotting your eyes and crossing your T's, and just kind of like nitpicking about, okay, well he didn't get there fast enough, so that could be something that could really help code. Just the little stuff that matters with that. But yeah.
No, I like it. I like it.
Yeah, yeah.
Well,
But no,
well,
oh, what were you gonna say?
now I was gonna ask Oud because in Oud's opinion, he essentially had Kawaki being like the sole person to take down Cole. Now, I personally believe that right there would probably be the most ideal thing. Maybe I might be biased because I am a Kawaki fan, but I've always thought that Kawaki plus Code, Kawaki plus Boruto going against Code, and them two jointly taking Code down would probably be a very good storyline, especially going into the time skip. I mean, but I was gonna ask Oud, would it be a good idea for them to potentially have like a like a joint or a 2v1 handicap at the end of part one?
Yeah, that would be completely fine as long as Kawaki, I guess, does the final blow, or he's, I guess, the reason that they win in the end. It's totally fine to have supporting characters. In this instance, it would be Naruto, Sasuke, Boruto, anyone to help him. But again, it has to be Kawaki is the reason that they won, and if Kawaki wasn't there, then they would have lost. So imagine like the Cell games, Cell's defeat. Spoilers for Dragon Ball, but it's like 40 years old, so I don't think anyone cares. We get Gohan defeating Cell, but then we also get all the side characters there helping out. They don't actually do anything. If Gohan wasn't there, they obviously would have lost. But because those characters were there, you could argue that's the reason Gohan won, even though narratively he would have had to win anyways. It just sort of helps to give them something to do, in a sense.
No, I see what you mean. I like that as well. I mean, again, I'm a Kawaki fan, so I prefer Kawaki being a lone person. But again, them two jointly ending Code kind of makes sense. I can't lie.
I mean, that makes sense too, though, because like the end of Naruto was Naruto and Sasuke siding with each other and fighting together for once, and then the end of it was them two fighting against each other. So it can work out if they want to.
Yeah,
Naruto.
I think I agree. Code seems more like Kawaki's villain than Boruto's. And the same goes for like Ishiki. He seems more like Kawaki's villain than Boruto. Same for Jigen.
But they
I guess like
always said that
Momoshiki.
like their problems were each other's problems, like they were homies like that. Like, you know what I mean? Like your beef is my beef.
No,
you know, we
I
were in
feel
this
you.
together. That was always their
But
narrative.
it feels like just Boruto's more like a passenger. Like he's just watching his life, like things happen to him.
Right.
Like Oud said, he's not very proactive. He's very reactive. In almost every instance.
Right.
So I think that's an interesting dynamic or choice rather to go with. Your main character, the title of the show is Boruto after all, and he's not even really in the forefront. It's very much so the Kawaki show. That's an interesting take. I mean, I guess you can kind of say that for Dragon Ball, Goku and Dragon Ball Z. Things just kind of happen to him, or he always like showing up at the very last moment.
He was always written out of the story in a convenient way.
Exactly. The side characters hold down the show, and so on and so forth. If you want to consider Kawaki a side character, or whatever the case may be. No, it's just a really interesting dynamic for sure.
Well, do you think it'll probably? Do you think that's a good idea or is it a bad idea? Because it sounds like you kind of believe it should be the other way around.
Well, I mean, Naruto was very similar. It's like, hey, these guys want to get you, so now you need to get strong enough to be able to combat them or prevent that from happening. And then like, oh, this war is happening. And we're all fighting this war, so we're just going to send you to this place, and you're not going to really know what's going on. Oh, you found out what's going on? Well, now you're just going to hop into somebody else's conflict, even though you are like involved in it, kind of, sort of, but not really. So like everything he did, he just kind of was reacting to everything. Now Boruto's like, hey, this isn't Naruto's story; it's my story. So I'm expecting things to be a little bit different, but they seem to be following very similar paths in terms of how they move this story or the plot or whatever the case may be forwards in their own narrative. They seem to be doing the exact same thing, just in different ways. No, is it good? Is it bad? I don't necessarily think that's a problem. I think side characters or your anti-heroes, I think they're far more interesting, and I think you can get more interesting stories from those types of characters than like your hero, to be honest. So I'm fine with it. Yeah, I'm good with it. Like I said, I think in the future, if Boruto were to go up against Kawaki, and Boruto ends up losing the physical battle, he dies or something, and then but he ends up winning the philosophical one, and he changes Kawaki at the cost of his life, and then Kawaki goes on to be like the great leader, which would tie into like the mythology of the Dharma wheel, which is supposed to signify a great leader or a future leader. So if they want to tie in some of the mythology of the actual eye, it could be pretty interesting. Yeah.